Welcome if you're joining us. Um, Love to invite you to take yourself or put yourself on video if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. We have a small group right now, so um, it will be great because you all will be able to ask any questions that you have about the program. I'm also going to be looking for somebody who would like um, to be a volunteer where I can do a mini a demo around what coaching is. So if you know that's you and you would like to volunteer, I'm just looking for somebody who has an issue or challenge that they're facing, and we're going to try a coach approach to see what outcome you get to through that approach. And if you'd like to volunteer, you could just chat me so I know at that point of the presentation. But why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome, my name is Erin Hutchins. I am one of the co-founders of ACT Leadership. We are a coach training company located outside of Washington, D.C. We have been partnering with Brown School of Professional Studies for over 5 years now, where we offer our full-blown coaching certification program, as well as this program, Leader as Coach. And the primary objective of this program is to train leaders to become more coach-like. And so it's almost like it's like a mini version of our full certification program. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. A little bit about me. I have been coaching for over 10 years. Prior to that, I was in consulting, where most of my work at that time involved being able to help clients fix big organizational issues. And what I found out pretty quickly was that the approach I was taking as a consultant was sometimes useful, but didn't always have the highest level of impact. So we weren't always really seeing the results that we wanted. And then I got into coaching because I got really curious about how could I help people ultimately help themselves by figuring out and solving their own problems or challenges. And that led me to train as a coach. Right now, what we do as a company is we train leaders to become formal coaches. We also have a team coaching program. We train individuals, leaders within organizations to learn how to become more coach-like. So that's what we're up to right now. So what I wanted to say about this program is that it is highly experiential. So the end goal of this program, if you take it, the end goal is to equip you with some skills, some coaching skills to help people ultimately find their own answer and take ownership of that, where they can then do their own critical thinking and problem solving to come up with their own solution. And so if I take a step back and I talk about like why do we want to help people do that? Some of the challenges that we see that businesses, organizations are facing is that they're facing, even right now, post-COVID era, a greater level of complexity. People trying to navigate through uncertainty and just not knowing. People who are going through transitions, whether that's a work transition or they're transitioning to a virtual environment or transitioning back to in-person. And what we're finding is that there's a greater level of just stuckness, where which creates a reactive environment, working environment. So you're going to hear me use words like reactive and creative, and those are actually based upon developmental psychology approaches, where based upon Robert Kegan out of Harvard, around looking at what happens to individuals or teams when they get into a reactive state, when they get into a place that feels stuck. And how do we help those individuals or teams become more aware so they can get out of a place of stuckness into a place that feels more resonant and productive, where they can be more effective. So, so an example of that, is if somebody's operating from a place of reactive, they might have a tendency as a manager, for example, to say yes all the time. So they say yes to things where they really mean to say no. They might have a tendency to be overly controlling or micromanaging, and um, and that necessarily doesn't have a good impact on others. So what we're doing is helping people when they get stuck in those tendencies to look at how can I see myself differently as a leader, and then how can I work with people in a different way that increases the level of engagement and connection. And then with the end goal of ultimately helping them solve their own challenges or their own issues. So that's what we're doing in coaching. So that's why we developed this program. In the first session of this program, we're helping you get out of this fixed mindset of wanting to solve or fix issues. Neuroscience tells us we're really hardwired in our brains to want to fix and solve, mostly because we're rewarded for that. Particularly if you're a consultant or within your organization, you are rewarded for um, fixing or solving problems, or that's the way you help, you define helping. Well, if that is what's worked for you in the past and that's how you're rewarded, then that pattern gets very ingrained. And that's typically how we approach problems, is through that lens. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we do, as in this program, we do offer you another way to approach problems that we find creates more lasting, longer sustainability. So a lot of times in this first module, we're just helping people to unlearn our default tendency to want to fix or solve. And so when people come in the program, they go, actually, this is hard. This looks really easy to do. But actually, it feels really hard to listen to someone in a different way or ask questions that provoke more deeper or level of thinking within themselves so they can solve their own problems. In this program, we also, so that first session, we're sort of unlearning that default tendency, and we're introducing you to the basic level of coaching skills. So we're teaching you how to listen differently. We're teaching you how to ask questions that evoke a greater level of thinking, deeper thought within that person. We're teaching you also how to help people connect to their values around what's important. And then you come back in the second session, and we're giving you a lot more coaching skills and mindsets, as well as doing more work with values. And then in session 3, we're really looking at how do you help people when they're in a reactive state? How do you help them shift to a creative one? And then in session 4, we're going through and looking at applications. So how do you apply this back at work? How do you make this meaningful for you where it feels easy to apply? So the way that this is structured is it's a 2-month program, and there's 4 sessions. That the first session is 3.5 hours. The other two, session 2, 3, and 4 are 3 hours. And so you show up for the live session, and then we introduce you to coaching skills and concepts to use. And then we pair you with coaching practice groups to practice in between the live sessions. And so that's how it flows for the 2 months. And really, our objective as trainers is to train you to be more of a coach-like leader, embody a coach-like leader, so it becomes really natural and normal around how you lead from that place, like on an everyday basis. It's not something we're not looking at like what do I read or what do I need to look at to figure this out, but actually it's more ingrained in your leadership style. And sort of that goes back to what I was saying before around becoming aware of our default tendencies, some of our ingrained patterns, and being able to approach people and problems in a different way. So it's really easy for me to talk about this because I've been training and doing this for many, many years, and I want to give you all an experience of this. It looks like we have a volunteer, Sarah. So thank you, Sarah, for volunteering. And what I'd love to do with you is just to, for you to come forward with just a topic, a challenge that you have, something that's going on where you want help. And where I'm going to start is just like a traditional problem solving conversation. So I'm going to ask you things around, if I'm looking at it from a problem solving mindset, how might I help you? And then we're going to do another conversation, which is going to be more coach like, and see the different outcomes we get from the two conversations. So Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, if you could come on video, that would be great so we could see you. And if you can't, that's okay. But you can take yourself off of mute.
And hello, good morning. It's morning here in California. So,
Hi.
hi. The situation I had, thank you so much for doing this session. I think this can be applied to many situations, but this is at a social event. The scenario is there are two groups of people. I guess it's not entirely work related, but you know, you can imagine situations like this happening. So there's one individual who I know quite well, who I was going to have brunch with them, and then two other individuals showed up. So this could be in a meeting where you're introducing, you know, one set of people who have not met another set of people, and this first individual made remarks that really were felt like they were putting down the other people. I don't know if that's, I'm generalizing it. I hope that's giving you the context. So there's one individual who had, I don't think I had intention of putting down somebody, but and the situation was construed to mean that you know, somebody was talking about their accomplishments and quite proud of it. And then this person said, well, you know, everybody does that. And so that's the situation. So I'm planning to talk to the aggressor, if you will. I don't know if they're the aggressor, but from their perspective, this individual, I didn't think it was such a big deal that the other person should have, you know, talked about in such a way.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me that little bit. So I'm going to just try a first conversation with you, a first approach, and then we'll try a different approach. Does that work for you?
Certainly.
Okay, so let's start with the first way. So Sarah, have you tried confronting this person?
I'm planning to do that. So I'm trying to line up my ducks. I'm going to have a meeting with them. So I intend to say, you know, call them today and say, you know, let's have a chat as to what happened on, you know, July 20th. Like, kind of be specific about, because this person has no idea. I don't think they understood what happened and the impact they had. So.
Yeah, and what's worked for you in the past with this person?
Well, this person, you know, kind of a gentle. Actually, in the past, I have confronted them, and they've gotten defensive. So this time, I don't want that to happen. You know, basically, what I want to come out and say, look, the way you talk is just ticking off people, and you know, if somebody is, you should, if somebody is kind of quote unquote proud of their accomplishments and seems proud, you can't put them down, even if you don't think they're, you know, accomplishments. You just can't put them down like that. That's what
Yeah, that's like one of the things that I've tried in the past too, is just like hitting it head on, just to, you know, just say what it is that you need to say and don't leave it too long.
Not too long, right? So you mean in terms of like letting time go by, or also
Yeah, like don't leave it. Yes, where it sounds like you're going to be doing it now, like sooner than later. So, you know, don't leave it too long to have a conversation and say what you need to say.
Yes, okay, great. Yes, that's great advice.
Okay. So we're just going to pause there for a second. So Sarah, that was like one way of approaching it, right? More of a sort of giving advice to you, self-referential based upon my experience. Now I'm going to try a second conversation with you, okay? And
Okay.
you're doing great, by the way. Thank you for volunteering. Um, so Sarah, back to your challenge. What feels important to you around getting this resolved?
What's important? Well, you know, it, Well, I really feel that, and actually, you know what, I kind of botched it up when this happened. I took the side, if you will, of the person who I thought was aggrieved. And so, I felt like, you know, my reaction was to protect the other person who was attacked, or you know, felt put down. And so then the other person kind of had a nervous laughter, and then I kind of joined in the laughter, and then this, you know, the aggressor was trying to say something, and I just ignored her because I was just like saying, look, I'm with the other person. And I think that was wrong because you know, I should have been the neutral party. Um,
And
uh,
in your mind, what would the ideal situation look like around, um, you know, what would the ideal need to look like in this situation?
I wish I was thinking better on my feet, or you know, at that moment, because you know, I could have resolved. I feel that I made a mistake in the way I approached it because you know, I saw this happen, and in the ideal situation, what I would have done is, oh, let's see as to why this person would have said this is not such a big accomplishment.
Mhm.
You know, I could, and then I could just say, look, you know, this person herself has done this herself, and so she feels that it's, you know, I mean, it's not a big deal that, you know, since she's herself done it. So, but the mistake I made is kind of gently make everyone understand that it was not intended as a put down, but just coming from a, you know, kind of maybe a blunt place, that this person was too blunt. Um,
And
so
how would you approach it differently next time?
I would pause, and I would, you know, I would try to be more neutral. I've noticed that when I see somebody being wronged, I tend to just, you know, kind of take the side, if you will, of the other part. But I kind of, and it's okay to do that to show support. But I think I don't do it right. I think what I should learn to do is. Uh, Still, you know, express support for somebody who's been aggrieved or attacked without alienating the attacker. Uh,
So, so it sounds like you want to take a different approach next time in a way that feels more neutral to you. Is that what I'm
yes,
hearing?
yes.
Yeah. And by being neutral, what value are you honoring within yourself as a leader?
You know, I want to have the trust of everyone involved. You know, I mean, I want to be the peacemaker, if you will. I mean, the, you know, I'm in a situation all the time that I'm resolving technical issues with people who don't agree with each other, and or with me. So I, you know, so I'm resolving issues. So um, I think I kind of, I don't want to use the word belittle, but I kind of diminish my influence by appearing too partisan. I think
And
somehow I need to learn to. Yeah.
yeah, I just want to jump in here. What's the mindset that you want to, so going forward, what's the mindset that you want to, that will help you connect with Peacemaker?
I kind of show both sides, kind of be, you know, kind of maybe put the context of what one, you know, the aggressor is saying, and put it in context rather than saying, oh yeah, this was an aggressive thing to say or put down. Give more context to what, you know, or draw more context from people. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, right? I could say, well, what do you mean by that, right? I mean, I should have said, that's interesting thing to say. What did you mean by that, right? Kind of, rather than just like joining the person who was aggrieved and, you know, kind of saying, I'm with you.
Well, it sounds like maybe meeting them with more curiosity. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, kind of draw out more information from them. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to stop here, but before we do, what are you taking away from this conversation?
I should pause and think a lot more before I, you know what I mean, kind of being, you know, more neutral and kind of bringing more information to the table when assertions are made, to put more context in people's, try to draw more context from people.
Yeah, great. Well, Sarah, I just want to say thank you for volunteering in this space to be the volunteer here so we could do this demo on these different conversations. I really appreciate you stepping up. Hopefully you got some value out of the conversation. And actually, I'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll debrief with others that are on. But curious, like what was the difference between the first approach and the second approach with you?
Well, thank you very much for, I'm enjoying this, being and learning. I think in the second approach of drawing more information, I'm making peace, right? I'm kind of bridging the disconnect. I mean, there was a disconnect, and I think it continued even if I showed my support to one side. The disconnect continued. So I think by bringing more meaning into what happened, I think there'll be better understanding of the parties involved with each other. Yeah.
Yes. And what was it like in the first conversation for me to be offering my advice, or based upon my own experience, what I think? Like, how did you receive that?
Your introduction, your own experience. I think it's interesting. I mean, obviously you've done this before, and I'm curious. I mean, you've seen many, I suppose, situations where people are, different interactions. So, is that very well?
Yeah, no, it's good. So wait, let's break these two conversations down. So when I first approach you in the first conversation, I'm looking through the lens of how can I help Sarah fix this? How can I help her? What can I offer from my own expertise, or um, what advice do I have for Sarah? And I'm sourcing that from my own um, past experiences, or from what I know about the situation. So I'm really focused on what Sarah is saying. Like, I'm looking for the data and the facts, and then I'm responding from that place. So when you're responding from a place of listening for what she's saying, what's the information she's giving me, you're likely to respond to offer some sort of advice or solution, right? Because you're focused on that problem, on that issue.
Correct. Yeah.
And the second, did you feel that? Like, I was really more like focused on actually what you were saying or giving me. And then in the second demo with Sarah, I'm really, as a coach-like leader now, I'm focused on how is Sarah relating to the challenge that she has? What's the relationship between Sarah and her challenge? So what that means is, how is Sarah seeing her challenge? How is she perceiving it? How is she feeling about it? What impact is it having on Sarah? So I'm more focused on how she's relating to it versus what she is saying or the information she's giving me. I'm curious, for others listening, feel free to write in the chat box around what you've observed. But really, that's the main difference between a advising conversation or problem-solving conversation, or even a mentoring conversation, and a coach-like conversation. And just to say one more time, in a coaching conversation, you're focused on how is that person relating to what their challenge or their issue that they're facing. And why do you think, and I just want to put this question out here, you can feel free to take, all of you can take yourself off of mute or answer in the chat box, but why do we think why is it helpful to focus on how someone is relating to the issue or the challenge? Why might that be helpful? Mara, you're saying Sarah seemed much more empowered to approach this from her real values. She feels more empowered. Sandra, you're saying because they're the ones that need to solve the issue. Maura, back to you, you're saying a huge difference. Our values and emotions matter. Yeah, great. And I want to also highlight what Sandra is saying, is that we really do need to allow other people to solve their own issues and challenges, and really build their capacity to do so. So that's what I believe coach-like leaders do, is that they allow people the time, the space, the energy to to do their own deep critical thinking to find their own solutions. And Maura, you're right. Like, we're finding our own solutions that are based upon what is important to us. What are our values that we're connected to? What matters to us? And making choices from that place. There was an article that I read recently that said over 75% of meetings are unproductive. And you think about, like, oh my gosh, that's a big number. You think about how many meetings do you sit in a day, and if you look at that, well, wow, like, that's a lot of unproductive time. And when people are making decisions from, we say, with the space of reactive, where they're not fully aware of their impact and they're not getting the results that they desire, then it can lead to a high level of unproductivity, a high level of just feeling stuck, not getting to anywhere, or people are making choices or decisions from a place that they're not really fully conscious of. And so working, what we're training you to do is helping people to become more aware around how they're making decisions and taking responsibility for the impact of those decisions. Yeah. So, like, I could say to Sarah all day, like, Sarah, here's my advice for you. Go confront this person. Stop waiting. Like, just go do it. But I'm not owning, I'm not the one who's having the challenge or the issue. Sarah is. So how really useful is that to Sarah, right? So Sarah's not really owning that because it's coming from somebody else. Versus in the second conversation, we're saying to Sarah, Sarah, what about this is important to you? How do you want to show up as a leader in this situation? What value would you honor here? And so we're giving her more time to reflect, do her own thinking before she responds to her challenge or her issue. So I just want to pause there and see if there's any questions from those that are on right now live around the demo, or any questions so far about being a coach-like leader. Okay. Hopefully this is coming across clear. A little bit about the program. It is, I'm going to share my screen so you can see the schedule, see when it's coming up. Let me do that now. Okay, here we go. So we have our next Leader as Coach program is kicking off at in the fall. So we have a orientation call on September 22nd, and the first live session begins September 28th. And so, as I mentioned before, there are 4 live sessions, and then there's a cohort completion call. And then in between all the live sessions, you'll have homework, asynchronous learning, and also you'll be meeting with your practice partners to practice what you learned in that live module. Everything that we teach is experiential, just like I did the little demo with Sarah. Like, we as instructors, we are doing live demos. Everything is real play. So we're sharing real situations, live challenges that are happening in our life. We are asking students to do the same, and then you're learning to work with people based upon their real challenges and issues, and helping them find their own solution, helping them solve their own problems. And so the goal is, after you attend these live sessions, is that you feel confident to apply right then and there. And I think I mentioned before that part of this is really unlearning that default tendency that we get stuck in to want to give the solution or provide an answer, or being able to source our response from a past experience that we have that we think might help somebody else. So that's how the program structured is laid out. In the fall right now, we expect to have about 30 people in the program, and we have leaders coming from all different industries and organizations. And so you will be paired with people that that have a range of experiences, and your coaching practice groups switch within after each module. So you get new coaching practice groups, so you get to meet a lot of people within this cohort. There is 2 instructors that teach this. So myself and Mike Hutchins, who are the co-founders of ACT, we're also faculty at the Brown School of Professional Studies. We have Brian Klein, who is a professor at Brown University. He will be co-facilitating these sessions with one of us. Okay, so let me just stop there and see if there's any questions. I will also go to the registration and fees page. So if you are interested in signing up for this program, all you will need to do is register, and the link is here. We'll make sure that that gets in the chat box so you have it. We ask you to please register by September 20th. If you want to send 3 or more people from your organization, that's great. We have a 10% discount that we offer if 3 or more people are coming from your organization. Okay. After the course and you meet all the requirements of the program, we issue a certificate of completion, and that comes from the Brown School of Professional Studies. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share and see. I'm just going to check the chat box here. So there's a question. I noticed the title said coaching for healthcare, but I assume this applies to more. Yes, so that's a great question. And we actually have this program that is for all industries. This Leaders Coach program, it's September, but we also have another program that's specific to healthcare organizations. So really for those who are responsible for patient care. We have another program that is just for healthcare professionals starting in September. So if you are interested in that program, it looks like Esther's already put the link in the chat box. Let me see here. Actually, that's for something else. So Esther, if you wouldn't mind, if you could put the link to the healthcare program in the chat box, that would be great if you're interested in that specific one. Okay, just going back to the chat box. Bruce, great. I'm so good to see you. I saw that you popped up here on the screen, and Bruce has actually gone through.
Hey, Erin, good to see you.
How are you doing?
Good. Glad to see everything moving forward and reactivated for the fall. So excellent.
Yeah, maybe while we have you, Bruce, it might be, so Bruce has actually gone through our full-blown coaching certification. Bruce is a coach. So maybe for others that are on the call, Bruce, or listening to this recording afterwards, like what, could you maybe just, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but could you talk about maybe the biggest shift in your leadership that you had from like training to be more of a coach-like leader?
Thanks. Yeah, it was very helpful. I've been using it in my own practice and also working with other of our colleagues that were in the session together. And so it's really great to see community being built up. And what really was exciting for me was seeing a number of different techniques, you know, that I had been using and that also people that I worked with were using in their relationships. And this idea of the spectrum, you know, between what you just demonstrated, I think, in the earlier session. So I came a little bit late, but I caught part of the discussion. Being that spectrum between, you know, in a place where you can step in, maybe from your own experience, and then in other cases where it could be more this coaching model that's really connecting with people, not necessarily based on a specific experience that you yourself have, but on just connecting with the person and their development of experience and being able to navigate the water. So that's been a really resonant theme and very helpful in many different contexts.
It's good to know. Thank you, Bruce.
Really pleasure. And if anyone wants to connect, I'm happy to say more about it in other settings.
Thank you, Bruce. I think that's, you know, I think you just landed on it. It's just that mentoring and problem solving conversations are appropriate, of course, in business. But if we're only looking through that lens, sometimes we don't always get the result that we need. And so I think, Bruce, where you're pointing us is like really being able to stretch to more coach-like conversations around meeting people where they are and helping them to, it's almost like this concept of slowing down to move faster, to really reflect on what matters here and how can I connect and engage with others to help them figure out what matters so they can ultimately make their own decisions. And so that spectrum that you talk about is absolutely true, is like really as a leader navigating, like when's the appropriate mentoring conversation? When do I come in and have my consultant hat on? Or when do I come in and have my coach hat on? And you really learn to navigate through those different scenarios.
Yes, and I would add, so that the first part of that is sort of the awareness, portion of the model, and then the development of the skills. So once you learn to see it, then, and we learn from each other through experiences, and also Aaron and Mike, it's really great to have your, model and leveling up in those areas. Continuous practice. So thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Let's see. Sarah, you had a question back to does this class count towards perhaps a future MBA curriculum? It does not. So it's not a 4-credited class. It is, it's separate from that. So, but you will receive a certificate of completion from the Brown School of Professional Studies saying that you have completed the course. Brown also offers, the Brown School of Professional Studies does offer executive programs that you might be interested in. And if that's something you're interested in, I would say check out their website on their other programs that they offer. Okay, let me just see here. Well, we hope that we cross paths with you on a future program. We run, right now we're running 2 of these a year, and that will be fall and spring. And then we have a healthcare program that we're running in the fall that is specific just to healthcare professionals. So check that program out if you're in that industry. And if you have any other questions or you want to connect with us, feel free to reach out to us directly. I'll put in the chat box our email address. And before we end, just want to give an opportunity for any other questions or comments before we end this call today. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us.